to your normal discussion where we talk about the hard topics uncensored. This is not your normal discussion. This is not your normal discussion. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Not Your Normal Discussion. I am your host, Queen Pedii.
Nina.
Glenn.
And Tryst. And for our first topic, dreaded CRT, critical race theory. We're starting off big. So what is critical race theory? If you don't know how to define it, there's a lot of misconceptions about it. Some people think it's rewriting history. Some people think it's telling history in full. And I tend to agree with the latter. So critical race theory is basically helping people understand the legacy of racism, and as it basically being white supremacy and racism through our framework of legal institutions, through how it's impacted society, and also its impact throughout history. And critical race theory, it started in about the 70s and gained momentum throughout the decade and into the 80s. And some of the reasons it came up is because legal scholars were noticing that despite everything with like desegregation, integration, the Civil Rights Act, the right to vote, despite all these gains, there seemed to be all of a sudden a real slowdown of like progress for Black people in America, and they were wondering why. And so one of the things that catalyzed or began the event of like starting the critical race theory was that at Harvard, there was actually basically a class where they were studying, let me see what it is called, a course called Race, Racism, and American Law. And it was being taught by the lawyer who basically was the chief architect of the case for Brown versus Ed. And, you know, he was white and he was co-teaching it with a Black man, Julius Chambers, and the white lawyer was Jack Greenberg. But the students weren't happy with a white teacher leading out in a discussion about racism, even though, you know, he's a part of like history, Black history. It still didn't sit right with them. So they boycotted and they basically formed their own class. And then Harvard eventually gave them a teacher, Mr. Derek Bell, a notable figure in critical race theory and even called the father of critical race theory. And he was their teacher. And when he left to become dean of the University of Oregon State Law, Harvard Law basically made it seem like they couldn't find nobody else to replace him with a class. And they were demanding they hire a teacher of color. And they told them there are no qualified Black scholars who merited Harvard's interests. And so going from there, the second thing that really helped bring about the birth of critical race theory was the 1987 Critical Legal Studies National Conference on Silence and Race. And Kimberly Crenshaw, the woman we have to thank for the term intersectionality, and one of the founders of critical race theory, she said the conference marked the genesis of an intellectually distinctive critical account of race on terms set forth by race-conscious scholars of color and in terms of contestation and coalition with CLS. And to sum up basically what critical race theory is, there are some central themes to it, like the concept of racial realism, that like prejudice is so ingrained in the DNA of America that we'll basically be fighting racism forever. And also interest conversion, that many of the things and wins that we got from white people, especially white people in power, it came because it also helped serve an interest for them. So they gave us something to benefit us, but at the same time, there was a benefit for them. And that's why the change was happening so incrementally. And I think so many people, they're so shook by critical race theory and they're so worried because we have the internet now. Kids are able to look up things in history when their teachers are reading from like biased ass textbooks and be like, no, that's not what really happened. Like, no, that's not what happened with Nate Turner. They ate him. Like there's so many things like on Twitter, if you look like Nate Turner after his rebellion, they turned him to oil, they ate his body, they turned his skin into like basically leather for like things like shoes and like furniture. And his family only has a skull. And these are things they're not going to typically teach you. And that's why so many people are pushing for critical race theory, something that's only like a postgraduate course, but they're acting like kids are being taught it and they're learning to hate themselves because of the sins of white people. And to me, it's just reverse racism and white genocide and miscegenation being rebranded for the right. But what do you guys think? I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so I just think it's funny how the people like we could talk about how Lord, not Ruby D, Lord have mercy. What is her name? The little girl who was the first one to go to a segregated school. Ruby Bridges. Yes. Why did I say Ruby D? We'll never know. But I'm thinking about Ruby Bridges and how those people are technically still alive today. And I wondered to myself, are these the people that are fighting against this because they don't want their grandkids and great grandkids to know that they threw rocks at this little girl and spit on her, and to the point where like the National Guard had to escort her and this is a little kid, and I'm like, do y'all not want people to know that y'all were assholes and what's the word? Feel I really, to be honest, I know you say this is a white supremacy type of thing, but I really truly feel like they, in the heart of hearts, they feel inferior. And that is a reason why they have to keep trying to knock us down every chance they get, because it's kind of like, if we let them get too big, we've already seen what they can do without our help at all. Because when you think about before slavery, from where they took us from us, being in Egypt and stuff like that, the beautiful cities and the pyramids and everything that we built those cities. We built those libraries. They don't want us to get there, but we're there. But for some reason, but not everyone is there. So they want to keep us in a little box, but y'all can't keep us in a box. Can't do it. But yeah, it's weird, because it's like, your kid, the kids aren't going to hate themselves. They're not going to hate you. Are you in the picture? Like, if you're not in the picture and you haven't done any racist shit, then you don't have nothing to worry about. Am I wrong? Let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm right.
Just to interject before Nina speaks, I just want to say, the thing, like, the example I'll use is like the Joe Rogan cancellation, them trying to get him off Spotify. I don't believe in like deplatforming and censoring unless there's like real harassment thing going on. But at the same time, I think white people think like, oh, if it was meant in jest and meant in fun, it's not racist.
Funny.
It's just dark humor. And it's like, things could be the same thing at the same time. Like, it could be racist and funny at the same time. Like, and one quote that the same white people who love quoting Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, that one line where they say, "Don't judge me by my race, but judge me by the content of my character."
I mean, I get it. But you know what's funny? Because like, y'all's mayor almost got canceled.
Yeah,
For saying,
I've been trying to get stories on
for being recorded. Who recorded him saying that? That's what I want to know. And who leaked it?
There's so many things.
Y'all petty.
Oh,
Cracker is nothing like Nick.
Yeah.
Okay, it's nothing like it, and y'all know that. Would you rather us say saltines? Honky. Let me not get us canceled. Play with words. No, but like, I respect all races. I'm just saying that the ones that are sitting here trying to ban the lessons and stuff and don't want it taught at all, they are fucking annoying. You're annoying. Like, y'all know I'm not saying all, because some people came here after the fact, and we're not slave owners, and I get it. But the ones that ancestors, they were slave owners, I need y'all to take several seats, okay? Like, take them, let your kids learn about what this country has done to people that did not look like you.
Well, wait, I'll say one more thing real quick. My thing is, even the ones like Martin, like the quote I was gonna say from Martin Luther King was, he said, I believe that most white Americans are racist, either consciously or unconsciously. And I think that's still very true today.
Mhm.
Because as we can see, all this hate and fervor that's rising up, like it's not just the like only 3% of white people back in the day owned slaves,
Yeah.
but the rest of the country was still willing to go to war over the issue of slavery. Like they still were willing in the Constitution to recognize Black people as 3/5 a person, so that they can get the representation of the huge population of slaves that they had, but also not give them any rights. And so, like, you might not be owning slaves, but you're looking at envy, and you're when you feel like slaves are replacing you when you are rioting or like trying to like get rights from your bosses and protests, and they're replacing you, they're scattering you with Black people. You're over there doing race riots and lynching. Usually, it's some poor whites. So, like, even if you didn't own slaves, there was still that
Yeah.
animosity and that
Yeah.
desire to.
No, I wasn't just saying, just the slave owners, but I'm saying, okay, when I was saying the ones that came after, I'm talking about like, like some of the Irish that came, after, and anyone whose family came on the boat and had nothing to do with slavery, whatever. But the ones that were back then, fought for the Confederacy, definitely was out here riding on horses, making sure that these slaves were in line. Yeah, take several fucking seats and just take accountability. Can y'all do that for once? Because it seems like that's a little hard for them to take accountability. Just like with the people that did the insurrection, they can't take accountability for the bullshit that they pulled. I'm done.
And for the next person, I will just say that, like, even with what you mentioned, the Irish and Italians, like some, like if you even watch just mob movies, even if you hadn't lived in areas with like particular populations, like they still were very racist because anti-blackness is very global. Like recently doing all the research I'm doing, like the critical race theory booklet I'm working on, like I discovered like something like for the whole mad scramble of Africa, where like European nations came together and said that like you're gonna get these territories and basically drew the borders and everything for these countries. Like damn near all the countries except for like two have had some level of European colonialism in it. And then even like with like or color, it's so much. I'm gonna let y'all talk. I've been talking a lot. All right.
Whoever wants
But
to go next.
so much time we had, and if we were able to learn our history, and you would learn the history with us, we'd actually be able to move towards productive places
Yeah.
and ways of transforming our society. But we'll get into it.
Like, yeah, I think it's sad. It's like they're trying to kill us away without killing us.
Mm.
Without necessarily putting the bullet to our heads. They're like, okay, well, since we can't necessarily do that too easily, we'll just get away. We'll get rid of we'll get rid of your history. You know what I'm saying? We'll make your history to where it doesn't exist, so that this new generation will be completely lost. They won't know. And history was one of my favorite topics. It's important to know your history. It's important to know, where you came from and how we got to where we are, because they say history repeats itself.
Yeah.
And in order to stop that trend, if the new generation don't know the history, how can they stop it when it comes now? They'll be clueless. So yeah, it's crazy to see how they're really trying to like take it out of schools. Stop, like, that was just knowledge. Like we learned growing up.
Yeah.
I'm 34 years old. We learned about that. I had a class where we learned about the freedom riders, and we wrote the letters that they had to write to their family members, knowing that they wouldn't get back. We learned the history of how it was a white man that was the first man to get off the bus. And he got beat down probably the worst, just protecting us. You know, we learned about, you know, Martin Luther King and some of the details that went along with that. The church getting bombed and the details of that. We saw the pictures, you know, we learned about the lynchings and just everything, Emmett Till, you know, all those people that it's just like, you trying to make it to where it doesn't exist. And just because those are your ancestors, I don't know whether it's fear or what it is, but like you said, take a seat. Like you can't take that out of history and act like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, it did happen, and it's important that this new generation knows that it happened. But yeah,
it's interesting because it's just like, it reminds me of that picture that the guy made where like basically it was a white man erasing like Malcolm X and two other figures. I can't remember the two other figures, but that's what it reminds me of, because I think that's what he actually painted that for, was for critical race theory, and how they were basically painting over the things that they had done, you know, and erasing it. Like you said, you can't erase what you've done. You did this, and you did this to Native Americans too. Like, we're not going to forget about them. And the Puerto Ricans for Nina, like, they did shitty things, and y'all have to take accountability for the shitty things that you did. And then you took land. My great grandmother's mother's mother walked on the Trail of Tears. Y'all made her walk from her home. And you telling me that you don't want these kids to know that? Like, that's not right. They should know that y'all fucked up. And y'all were fucked up. And some of y'all are still fucked up, sadly. And then the people that are making our laws now are just way too old. They were around in that time, so they definitely are gunning for erasing this shit, because they don't want people to know that they were doing like this. Like, they don't want people to know that. Because I'm pretty sure Mitch McConnell was out here calling people niggers all the time. I'm pretty sure he was.
I want to speak on two things you said. You mentioned Malcolm X, and he has that quote, I'm a paraphrase, where he says, you know, we need healing, like for real progress, we need healing for the wound that was done to us. And the knife was stuck into her back. And progress isn't pulling a 9-inch knife only 4 inches out and saying, oh, things are better. No, it's pulling it all the way out and healing the wound. But you don't even want to admit the knife is there. And that's what really all, like, even from back in that time and beyond and up till now, all of this basically trying to suppress truth and information is coming down to trying to continue to paint this narrative of America as a moral country with some failings. We're like, you know, we all have dark past, but like as if it's not still continuing. And I'm gonna let you go in a second, Nina, but I just wanted to address, like, think about the things like you may not have known until like very recently because of things on Twitter and stuff like that. Like, only recently that I know that like slavery, like chattel slavery started in like Virginia in like 1619. And I didn't know that like before like 1650, like African slaves were indentured servants who worked for like 4 to 7 years. And then they got like 25 acres of land. They got like grain, they got arms and everything like that. They got their freedom. And of course, interestingly, that's where the concept of 40 acres and a mule comes from, that the very first indentured Black servants actually got 25 acres for their service. But then what happened, like where colorism comes from, because a lot of us think colorism is just a black, inter-black thing, and like it has no connection to white people, like they know nothing about that. But in reality, even then, the white slave masters were still raping the women there, and then having these light-skinned babies and giving them preferential treatment because they're children, and while they don't inherit any property because they're Black, they're in the house, they're doing things like sewing, they're not outside doing hard labor. And even when slavery ends, there's still that preferential treatment where although there's like that one drop rule saying like, even if you have a drop of blackness in you, black blood in you, you're black. So like, don't worry about any of them type of things you're trying to inherit from your slave masters. At the same time, they use paper bag tests, not just to have like clubs and anything like that, but also for hiring people on jobs and also for the people, like sending people to school.
They used to use the paper bag test for sororities back in the day. And I remember my teacher telling me that. I was in 5th grade and she was like, we were talking about the paper bag test and she was telling us sororities. Like she had gone, you know, she had to go to college and stuff. So she said she wanted to do like some, I don't know which one it was. I'm not going to say, but she was like, yeah, they did a paper bag test to make sure you were the right color to get into that sorority. So a lot of these sororities, they only had one type of person. They look like me and Nina, basically.
And I'm gonna Nina in a second. I just want to set up a pretext. Like not only just in the sororities and that creating that concept of like that hierarchy that would lead to the colorism that we most predominantly see in the Black community, but it all still goes back to racism. But even like in other countries, like where you hear like dark-skinned Dominicans talking about, oh, I'm not Black and everything like that. Like there was even like in these other countries this concept that like we purposely are trying to breed lighter and lighter so we can get as close to white perfection as possible, because with playing into that, there comes more preferential treatment, less discrimination, and then also more of this with the Eurocentric beauty standards, appearance of beauty versus Black and darkness being considered ugliness. And we obviously still see that playing today. And the one thing I want to say, I don't, like I said, I don't want to dominate too much of this, but I find it very funny that there's also other kinds of critical race theories that, like, for example, there's Crit, which is actually about Latino discrimination, everything from like the sterilization that's happened, especially like it's happening in the Black communities and indigenous communities, but also especially in Hispanic communities. Things like that there's Crit. There's I want to say critical feminism, or critical race feminism, talking about like the interplay between Black men and Black women. And there's also international critical rights, human rights theory, because, you know, not everything just happens in America and Europe and the rest of in the Western world. And I think if they talked about that, there would be more people who would be joining in and saying, yo, no, teach full history. But they focus on critical race theory because they know, because of anti-Blackness, is going to rile up more people to be like, well, what's all this focus? Like, it's only Black people. And everything they're doing is strategic. Even when it's just trolling, it's all strategic, because as little as we can talk about history, as little as we can talk about anything other than what they want to talk about of people not being moral enough to just follow the American way, it leads away from actually holding them accountable, and instead makes us look like we're the fuck-ups. But Nina, I want yeah. Well, she's but Nina, I wanted to know your thoughts on some of the things we said and whether you agree, disagree, or have a deeper reflection on it.
So for my thoughts, I think they're learning new things about what happened in history. And I think because we're still part of the cancel culture, that maybe some people are afraid to upset Blacks or upset whites, and they're trying to play the fence. I know, like, if I watch like certain Disney movies that I used to watch when I was little, like the Cats, they put it right there. Yes, they put right there in the front that hey, this is not our views anymore. It should never been like this. This is, and it's like
a lot of movies. It's a lot of them on Disney Plus like that now.
Yeah, right. But that's what I'm saying is that okay, so I don't 100% believe they're taking out our history, but what I think they're doing is
what are they taking? I want to know, because they're erasing it. I mean, saying that we don't want it taught in school is basically taking it out, though. That's the thing. Like, if they weren't running around saying, oh, keep, take it out. We don't want this at all. We don't want them to know about this. This is racist. This is racist. Then nobody would have a problem if they weren't doing that. This wouldn't even be an issue if they were just like, I grew up with this type, like let's say we grew up with this. Why is it now all of a sudden you want the new generation that already can't write cursive, already can't spell like that, to not even know what happened, not even 100 years ago? Why? That's the thing. Like, they are taking it, they're erasing it, they're making it like it never happened. Oh, no, that never happened. It's not in the book, right? It's not in the book.
There's only a few whites who are really bad. It was those, and even them, they have the whole like.
And I'm not saying it's every white person,
Not even destroyed, but moved to museums. But people are pissed that are no longer standing up proud outside of fucking courtrooms and schools and all that other shit and parks and everything. And what I was saying about Joe Rogan earlier was that because of this conversation of like, oh, well, how many jokes does it take to prove his race? Like I said, I go back to the MLK thing of like, most white people, because white supremacy is so pervasive, anti-black is so pervasive, you are like, just in the same way that men might be inherently sexist because we grow up in a patriarchal world and we expect certain things from women and we expect certain things from each other and ourselves as men. Same way white people, white people are not comfortable being uncomfortable in the truth of either their history or the truth of the things that they find funny or interesting, or they just can't as a community get it together. It's so sad. Or just the uncomfortability in even like engaging in the conversations. Like, and I get that uncomfortability because me and my roommate were just talking about like they're queer, I don't want to put out things that they haven't put out themselves, but they're also disabled. And we talk about like, oh, this was ableist, that was ableist. And like, yeah, like the things like in the moment, you might be feeling like, oh, you're calling me this. And we're talking about like the natural thing to go here or to like think you have to school me on how I'm supposed to like basically better talk to people about my disability and stuff like that. Like it might be coming from a good place in your heart, but the expectations you're expecting of me to do to conform to match everyone else and have them accommodate me do in the ways I need is still ableist. So in that same way, white people, like, I think we need to not even remove the stigma, like accountability culture, hold people like I said,
okay. Maybe accountability isn't the best word, but just acknowledge it is what I'm saying.
Like, things could be racist and still be funny. Things could be sexist and still be funny. Things could be like Dave Chappelle's last special. I find it very transphobic, but it was still funny. There were still funny jokes. It's just like I said in that first episode I think we did, or one of the first episodes that we did. I was like, what is the message? What are you getting at? What are people going to take away from this? And that's the impact. And I just want to read a couple benefits of critical race theory, because in all the hoopla about critical race theory, I think we into that.
Before you do that, we did interrupt Nina. We interrupted her. She got to eat her pizza. Yeah. I'm so sorry, baby girl. I'm sorry. She was like, damn. I was like, well,
I've been trying to work on this book for like a month or two. There's so much. Yes, finish your point.
I don't even remember what I was gonna say. Y'all interrupted me so bad. I just paused because Jack was making noise, and next thing I know, she didn't even let me finish my thought or nothing. She just went on me like, "Oh no, this is what I believe," and I'm like,
"Well, no, it's not. No,
I didn't get to finish."
You said it's not like they taking it out of history.
But I didn't finish.
Okay.
You know, it takes me a while, but I gotta think about it. You know, my English ain't that well, y'all. So I gotta think before I say, because if not, it's gonna come out all jumble.
I'm that way
I have
too.
that ADHD stuff going on, and I'm my best friend told me I'm like a hummingbird. Um, and it, so Nige, what was I gonna say?
You were talking about you don't necessarily think they're trying to erase history, but
I don't think they're trying to erase it completely, but there is a lot of new information, and kind of like how they did with Egypt. Egypt is wonderful, yes, but they still had slaves. Every country had their own version of slaves. When they went and conquer a country or another village or whatever, those people end up being slaves. But with the way they did it in America was really uncalled for. But at the same time, like I said, they're even nowadays, yes, they are taking some information out or a lot of information out, but also they're finding new details about slavery and they are trying to put it out there. It may not be in our schools because a lot of parents don't want kids learning about that kind of stuff. And of course, a lot of people they don't really care because it's not on social media, it's not this and that. And the only time where we really are in depth with our Black history is February. Kid, is in February, and that's when we're like, oh, we or when Martin Luther King's birthday, we're like, oh yeah, or June 14th. Oh yeah. I'm sorry, for the longest time, I didn't even know what June 14th was.
Is it 19th? June
June
19th.
Oh, sorry. June 19th. Sorry.
it's Juneteenth.
So I didn't even
Okay, baby
know
girl.
about that till like 2 or 3 years ago. Because I didn't know that. And
Well, but
that's what I'm
you
saying.
also grew up differently than I would say I did, because
I grew up in the military.
yeah,
Military schools. We still did talk a little bit
yeah,
more
but
about
when
Black.
well, I'm not even talking about like in school, like, because I'm gonna be honest, I didn't learn about Juneteenth in school. I learned it from my parents. My mom told me about Juneteenth. She was like, Frederick Douglass always had this quote where he was like, why are you celebrating 4th of July when that's when, you know, like people were freed? Y'all weren't free. This is, you know, art. And that's how my mom introduced Juneteenth to me as a kid. So
See,
I was a little thing one time when I was a kid too. I gotta find that picture. It's so
we weren't
cute.
learning about that because I wasn't raised as having that chip on my shoulder a little bit. I had mostly I was raised with everybody because on the military they don't go, okay, you
Well,
Blacks hang out with these, you stay with these, you stay.
well, I wouldn't say that well, I wouldn't say I have a chip on my shoulder. I wasn't brought up to have a chip on my shoulder either. I was brought up to treat everybody like I would want them to treat me.
Yes. And
But
that's the way I was raised.
but
I
I
was
know
also raised to respect my elders, to give everybody that everybody have their own opinion. If you don't agree with them, that's not your fault. That's their opinion. That's their ideas. That because you don't know what they've been through in order to get that opinion. So for me, it's that's how I feel. That's how I was raised. You don't know what they went through. Some people think, oh, a tap on a butt is nothing, while some females or guys, they get tapped in that butt and makes them remember that one awful night or this balls that tap them all the time and wanted. So, like I said, it depends on it. That's why I said like I was a little bit more sheltered because I was on military base and I wasn't looking for anything else. What my mom taught me was what she taught me. What my dad showed me was what I learned. So for me, compared to my brothers, I was more sheltered. And my first couple of years, I lived in outside United States.
Yeah.
So I lived in Puerto Rico for a couple of years. I lived in Germany, France, Europe before I even stepped back into United States. I only lived in the United States for a month. The first month I was born, that's it.
Yeah.
So that I think that's why I have different opinions when it comes to this kind of stuff, because I wasn't around it as especially younger.
You didn't have to grow up in it.
And I wasn't grown up in it. And even like with my kids, I tried to explain to them, but I can't really explain to them because of the way I was brought up. So the way I was brought up, that's the way I'm teaching them, is like, hey, because I'm afraid Jack is gonna come out one day hanging out with a guy and say, hey nigga, what you doing? And they're gonna want to shoot him.
But
he's
if
around.
he knows what his lineage is, he can always say, look, this is what I am. Because what's that the rapper?
What do you think?
The rapper that looks white. What's his name? Damn, what is his name?
Which one? The one that sung Sunflowers? Paul, no.
No, fuck, what is his name? It's something real weird. It's a real weird name.
The Weeknd?
Bostic? No. Fuck, what is his name? He wears glasses, but he's biracial. And like I know our editor said that he had heard some song he had, and he had said the N-word. He was like, wait a minute. But then he had to look it up, and he saw that he was Black, and he just did not look it. It's so many of that.
There's so many people like that, but at the same time, when he's a rapper, so you can look up his stuff.
Understandable, but if you tell him and let him know who he is and what he is, yes, you are a whole bunch of other things, but at the same time, you are this. But it doesn't give him a pass, because I wouldn't want my kids going around saying nigga. Let me be real.
I don't like that word.
I don't want my kids doing that.
You know how they do in high school.
Yeah. But if he lets them know I'm actually Black, so back off. Like, you want to see my mama?
Look at him
like look at my mom.
So, like, I think
he'll be okay.
And be speaking and being in that. Like, I always say that I wasn't raised really culturally. I was raised more so religiously. And so I wouldn't say I typically had a chip on my shoulder, but like I was definitely like that Oreo kid. Like, I've had like friends in high school who would call me white boy, like Black friends, and then I'd have like white friends or white classmates and Jewish classmates who would call me token after the dude from South Park in my law class. Oh yeah, they played in my face like that. But like, I was always someone who was very much like, I won't let someone get me off my pedestal until they are ready to put their hands on me, and then I'll give them all they got then. And also, like, back then in high school, there was a lot of like energy of like, just like, you both joke on each other's cultures and shit like that. But like, of course, looking back is like, we weren't even close enough like that. And I will speak.
Y'all a different breed over there in New York. We ain't play that shit down here in DC. We don't play with nobody culture. You'll get your shit rocked.
I was called white girl in DC.
Yeah, the DMV is very different.
Girl,
I was called white too. So just know it.
No, they called me the whitest white. They kept touching my hair. And even though
light skin.
Even though I was girls that were even like welcome.
Welcome to being light skin.
No,
I've been called white bitch, white girl, all of it. Everything with white, I have heard it.
No, I was as dark as Glenn and Tryst coming from Louisiana to DC.
Oh, girl,
they still call me the white girl.
And well, I'm not that light.
Whiter than me.
Well, it's probably not just color. It's also like a term of calling her like an Oreo, probably. Because if you're darker,
country,
you face more discrimination. You start lashing out at people that you know is going to get more preferential treatment in life. Because we live in. Okay, yeah. So let me give you the benefits. So much to say on this subject. So some of the benefits of critical race theory even include inspiring and motivating organizers and activists. So It says that learning critical race theory actually helps students and youth organizers feel passionate and motivated to take action. And students who learn about this end up developing this sort of hope, actually, that reform is actually possible because they have a tangible and practical way to make changes. Once you realize that systemic oppression is real and it's a real thing you have to contend with, so it's not your fault that like there are things that are holding you back in achieving certain things at a certain speed, like other people around you, you now understand that and you're like, okay, what can we do to actually make a change for that? And so you no longer think of yourself in the terms of like victim or anything like that, or oppressor, but you turn that into agents of change. What can we do collectively to achieve change? Secondly, another benefit is that you being active in critical race theory inspired organizing and movements actually improves their performance in school. Research shows that youth organizers become more academically successful in school as they progress through organizing. So ironically, while youth organizing helps young people become more aware of inequalities within and across schools, it can also make them less alienated in school and more committed to their academics. And for the third point, learning about critical race theory and getting involved in activism actually has lifelong benefits. So on one, the values, goals, and dispositions you cultivate while organizing not only allow you to adopt careers like being an educator, being a teacher, being a counselor, but also drove them to find ways to continue to participate constructively in civic life as adults. So like critical race theory could really be the difference between just, continuing as we are and like some Black people making gains here, a little gain here, a little change there on some incrementalism shit, or like an entire generation being raised to really challenge the system and take back power for us on some level. And I do want us to start exploring it more and getting deeper into that knowledge, because as you can see, they're not going to give that out to us for free. We're going to need to be the ones to educate ourselves, whether it's in homeschooling, on the internet, just collectively talking about information to us as a people. And I wish and I hope, especially in this being a midterm year, so they're going to talk endlessly about this. I hope we become more educated so that we're not just playing the game that they're playing, but that we're actually collectively understanding how we can organize. And in the description below, there's going to be actually links from Khadija Amboy. She's a YouTuber who does amazing research and collectively puts so much of this research that I'm compiling together. And if y'all watch the videos, you're gonna see just the impact. She even interviewed this Dr. Sheena Mason, who has a separate theory called the theory of racelessness. Maybe that's something we can get to in the future. But the more we learn, the more we can change the world we're in versus just waiting for things to continue to be the same.
All right, let's take our first break, you guys.
What's going on? So my topic today is Joe Biden administration is shooting a lot of money into making these kits up. It was said that these kits will have crack pipes in it, along with some other stuff. And I guess their whole goal really is just to, I guess, make it safer for the addicts and stuff out there. And of course, there's a lot of people that feel a lot of different ways about this. Some people are completely, totally against it, but I'm going to actually play a clip off of Live Now from Fox. And it's a lady pretty much describing, I guess, what will actually be in the kits. And
when did she do the video? When is it dated?
It is dated was 5 hours ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and here's the clip. And the clip is pretty much update from the White House.
Okay.
Thanks, Jen. HHS just put out a statement clarifying around some reports that crack pipes are not going to be part of the safe smoking kits that are funded by the administration. But can you clarify for us, were they never a part of the kit, or were they removed in response to this reporting and this pushback?
They were never a part of the kit. It was inaccurate reporting, and we wanted to put out information to make that clear.
What is in the safe smoking kit?
A safe smoking kit may contain alcohol swabs, lip balm, other materials to promote hygiene and reduce the transmission of diseases like HIV and hepatitis. I would note that what we're really talking about here is steps that we're taking as a federal government to address the opioid epidemic, which is killing tens of thousands, if not more, Americans every single day, week, month of the year. We put out this statement, though, because there was inaccurate information out there, or I should say HHS put out this statement because there was inaccurate information out there, and we wanted to provide clarification on the allowable uses for the HHS harm reduction program. It's not a change in policy.
Now, that's from the White House. I mean, my opinion with it is, the government is very sneaky about what they say and what they don't say. So it's hard to say at this point on if there is crack pipes in it, if there isn't crack pipes in it or not. My feeling on it is probably different from most people's stands. I actually don't see any issue with it. I think that, it's not like these people in certain circumstances, and I'm not trying to come off ignorant or sound ignorant, but yes, in certain circumstances, this will lead to certain criminal behavior and people just doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. However, most of the time, these people find a little spot somewhere, they get doped out their mind, and unfortunately sometimes go too far into death. Us helping them, is it really harmful to anybody? You know what I'm saying? It's not like the majority of them turn into criminals out here doing bad stuff. So why not help them, at least give them a safer environment to do what they're going to do regardless?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I see where they're going with it because, like I was saying in our chat, that it kind of reminded me of when I was in that intervention, and in Georgia, they have this program where they actually gave out needles and little different things for drug addicts to use so that they wouldn't have to share needles. And I get that because it does lower the transmission of HIV. But I truly feel like this is not going to help lower, the war on drugs, whatever you want to call it. It's not going to lower it. It's encouraging people. Like if y'all really want to do something, make rehab free. Do that. Like, a lot of people don't go to rehab, not because they really don't want to, but because they can't afford it. I know someone who does not want to go to rehab because they cannot afford it. And it's not for drugs, before y'all get into the crazy, but it's like they can't go because they can't afford it. It's too much. Make rehabs free. Make sure all the people that work in the rehabs have background checks, because a lot of times they have little sketchy people up in there, especially if it's a rehab center that's not running, lawfully. So I would say, I'm not saying we shouldn't have a program like this. Like I said, I get the idea. I get it. You want people to be safe if they are going to choose to do drugs. But there's so many other things that this money can be going to. Like we were talking about student loans. Yep. You have student loans. I don't have student loans, but I feel bad for people that do. Like it's shit, schools.
People are committing suicide because they can't afford to pay their student loans. They're getting their liens
mental
on
health. Let's make therapy free. Let's make psychiatry.
Healthcare.
Yeah, there we go. Universal health care. Huh?
I want you to remember, they're only allotting $30 million to this.
That's a lot though. You know where that 30 million can go?
Teachers.
Mental health, universal health care, student loans.
To the teachers that are working so damn hard to take care of our kids.
Technically, here in DC, they have already started raising teachers' wages. So that's a good thing.
But no, I using their own money to pay for supplies.
No, I get it, but
that's why I'm saying.
Yeah, for the school. Yeah, exactly.
30 million is a lot for them.
Books.
When they're, again,
fix our history books. Put more black in it.
$20 billion more than whatever the military or the Pentagon is asking for. Like, they're playing in our faces. This is like bullshit money. This is McDonald's Happy Meal money for a government. And like, for me, I do mutual aid work with a bunch of homeless people who are doing drugs. Like, just last night, I was at a protest against law and order showing up in Tompkins Park. They moved all the homeless people out of like a particular area and then put up fake tents in the area that they're seen for a vigil. So that's going to be in a future episode. We were out there making noise to waste their money and calling out. And then while we were protesting it, because they regularly go and they sweep. And when they sweep, they go and they take their tents, they break down their tents, they take their possessions and they put it in a trash bag, and in their face, they throw it in a sanitation garbage truck to crush it, because they're trying to force them to go find somewhere else so the park could be clear of people that they worry, provides a threatening element to the park. So in here, we're protesting, and then one of the PA people, they turned around and said, this is not even about homelessness. And it's like, and so I call out, I'm like, so you mean to tell me you put a fake tent in the area where homeless people sleep at, and you have security so that homeless people can't get in there, and you sweeped out all their shit already. So you did all that for a vigil scene with a fake missing persons truck in the back. So that means either this is for fake solidarity with the homeless community, like a homeless person was taken, or for this part of this episode, this is where we are potentially demonizing the person that demonizing the unhoused community, because what's going on? Why would you need to have fake tents directly in the background of the scene? So like some people, there was a lot of assholes. Anthony Anderson, I used to respect you. At some point, like, my roommate hates you. I used to be like, I don't like him and shit. But I had to call out at one point, what about the allegations? And at another point, I had to call out, what you call it?
Allegations.
Huh?
Allegations. What you
doing? I don't have time.
Hey, never mind. No, we ain't gonna get it. Look. All I'm saying, this is all I'm saying. There are other things that's going on here,
but
like that we can be allotting a lot of that money to. Like, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be safe. I get it. I totally get what you're saying. I'm just saying there are other things going on, man. Like, if you want to go and ruin your body, why should my tax dollars go to you?
Thank you.
Because I
work hard to keep my body good.
Think, you know what? I'm not gonna do that. I watched The Intervention. That's how I keep myself off of
Like, think about how they try to do.
Like, nah, that ain't gonna be me. No, but like, in all seriousness, it's other things that's going on here that we need to be taken care of. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be safe. I'm just saying, can we get something else? Maybe a fundraiser for that. No. But my tax dollars should go to somebody to encourage them to continue doing drugs and kill themselves. I wouldn't even buy. I don't buy liquor for alcoholics. Straight up, I don't do that. So why would my tax dollars go to somebody who is going to be shooting drugs into their veins?
Republican talking point, and they played in our face by saying this about racial equality. So they're using Black people as the face of, the crime, but let's go help these helpless Negroes and everything like that. When in reality, 55% of the people who use crack are white. 37% of the people who use crack.
My tax dollars shouldn't go to none of you. None of you. It don't matter if you're black, white, yellow, brown, purple. I don't want my tax dollars going to the drug.
It's already hard enough to get our tax money back to us.
Shit, they ain't getting my tax dollars for the past 3 years. I know I'm over here talking about my tax dollars, but you know.
Tax dollars, but we're fighting over crumbs and pennies when really, if we were having our military budget and everything like that.
And that shouldn't be as much as it is now either.
It doesn't need to be so that
we need to cut a lot of shit that doesn't need to be there. But
helping people who have addictions, who have mental illnesses, who have a need, and who are going to do, like last night, what I was bringing up.
If you're going to do it, go to the store and get cotton balls yourself.
Listen. Let me be real with y'all. That last night, me and another guy were talking to, who was talking about like the reason he had to be in the hospital and he has problems walking now is because he's a guy who shoots up crystal meth and he shoots up dope, and he put the needle in, pulled out, there was pus in it, he didn't realize he stuck into an abscess, and so he tried to get as much of the pus out as he can, put it into his mouth. Listen, this is real shit. This is little, like, I'm telling y'all, I work with this community. And he put the pus in his mouth, trying to get as much of it as he can out the needle, because he's like, hey, it's dope, you're gonna get high off it one way or the other. And so he put the rest of it, put it in the vein, arm to his spine, and that little pus that was still left in the needle ended up causing him to have trouble walking. And these are people who are often overdosing, often doing things in back alleys. He was talking about how him and his boyfriend, you know, the sex work that often comes with trying to afford drugs, especially when there's no one. And talking about getting high with no Narcan because
therapy,
hits and everything like that.
Therapy,
bare minimum. If we
psychiatrist,
but
therapy, mental health.
Hey, let him finish.
I'm sorry.
We can't snatch these people off the streets, put them, like, lock them up in like some mental hospital and say this is what.
No, I'm not saying that.
No,
I'm not saying that.
Right, and treating them like
they should have, because I bet you, if you ask that guy, hey, if I pay for you to go to rehab, would you go?
A lot of people don't want to go to rehab. These people are no.
There's a lot of people that do, but they can't afford it.
But they can't afford it. I'm telling you, I know.
They have it in their head, they can't do it.
But it's not just about thinking in their head. They have literal mental issues. So
yes.
It isn't for us to act like they should just like wake up and like get it together. Like they have.
No, we didn't say this about them having to wake up. We're saying that if they want to be able, do the kits, but have them go. Let them do something in order to receive these kits. That way they can understand that what they're doing is not.
Like you have to have this condition. We as a country need to get out of this mindset that we gotta like
but let's be real. Do you want your friend who cannot walk now, for real? Do you think if he had like gone to therapy and maybe worked out his issues and maybe they had offered him like some type of grant to go to rehab, you think that would have happened to him if he had been able to get mental health help? I'm not saying put people in fucking hospitals. I'm saying make mental health free.
But it's not just that needs to be free. We need free healthcare overall. We need to legalize drugs. We need to we need to not be imprisoning people. Because why? We need to stop taking away people's benefits if they're like, oh, we give you housing, but if you are overdosed or drugged up or anything like that, you're gonna lose benefits. We need to stop making this type of things conditional and then be.
Well, I'm not talking about housing and stuff though. I'm talking about, look, if I would say this, I don't think that people should be locked up if they're on drugs. I don't. I think that they should go straight to rehab. That's what I think. And that's why I'm saying rehab should be free.
But for alcohol,
it should be somewhere you just go to, just like they take your ass to jail, they're gonna take your ass to rehab.
To me, unless you, for example, commit a actual crime against someone and you discover to have an amount of drugs in your system, that then would make sense. But to just snatch up people who might like getting high, think about it. How many people smoke weed?
Okay, but they're killing themselves. And the thing is this, that it's not just them that's affected, it's their families as well.
Not only them, but
Their
the
families
taxpayer,
have to go
everybody
through
else.
every day being
So
stressed.
why should everybody else pay for something that they wouldn't do?
Those families that are stressed
Okay, so
out
they have the freedom to
poor.
do this. Why are we the one who have to pay for it? Because they choose to do that.
Why can't we cancel student loans? Think about the rich people who don't have to worry about student loans. They're
We're not
saying,
talking
why
about student loans no more.
your student loans? They're
I ain't
saying
got no
the
student
same thing. That like we can only do this on the condition that this person is going to do that's in line with what we want. Like we're America, we call ourselves the land of the free. We say we have freedoms. Let's fucking act like it. Let's.
Okay,
Yes,
then
and
you
they
have
have freedom to, if you are caught with drug paraphernalia, or if you are caught doing a crime, and like you said, they're caught with drug paraphernalia, take your ass, they gonna snatch your ass, put your ass in rehab. That's a freedom. That's a freedom to have a better life. A better life. Let's be real. Like people get, like, imagine it's 60-year-olds out here that's on drugs on the streets, and their mamas are like maybe, let's say 79, 80 and up, and they worried about their child because they're out there shooting up. They don't know if they're gonna get a call. One of my friends literally had their uncle die from fentanyl.
Yeah.
Like that. And what I'm saying is, had he been able to go to rehab, had he been able to have mental health help, maybe. I'm not saying it's a for sure, but maybe.
But not
he would still
necessarily.
be here.
Not necessarily, and that's why you gotta.
He has an 11-year-old. That 11-year-old saw him die. Like, that's not cool, man. That little boy is going to be traumatized for the rest of his life.
That's a failing of the system. That's not like, oh, these are just bad people and they're ruining.
Not at all.
It's the same thing we have when we talk about suicide. Do we say, oh, these suicidal people, they're selfish, they're killing themselves?
No one's saying they're selfish. I'm not saying that drug addicts are selfish. What I'm saying is that it trickles down. It's not just about them. It's about the families too. That have to be stressed. And they're stealing from their families, and that's why they can't go home, because they just stole their mama's jewelry or their daddy's jewelry or the TV or PS4, and now they can't go back.
And
because they are.
Why don't they have it where if you get these kids, you have to go see a therapist or
that's not saying just
to get to learn, or a class?
You can't. That's the thing. You can't force that though. You have to meet these people where they're at. Once you make it safer for them, and they get that,
but at least have something where it's like, hey, would you like to go to therapy?
That's going to automatically turn them on.
I think that we need to have universal health care straight up.
Especially like runaways. Here's a kid to start drugs. Enjoy.
Yeah. Like, and now here we go.
Hey, here's some kits for you. But no, let's actually educate people. Like right
That's
now.
What I'm saying. Why
are they educating them? Are they educating them, or are they just handing it out?
Well, what are we doing besides that? Like before, you're saying, oh, there's money that can go to other things. So let's say
that's what I'm saying. That's why we need to have mental health care that is free.
Yes.
And that way at least they can be educated. Because look, when my when my psychiatrist heard I had smoked weed one time, he educated me on weed. He educated me to make sure that I didn't become like a little pothead or something. I never did, because I don't have an addictive personality. But it's just like, he at least educate. That's what I'm saying. Like, psychiatrists they can educate you on more than, what's going on in your head. They can educate you on what you're doing with yourself, with your body, because they are doctors. At the end of the day, they're doctors. Your therapist can do the same thing. Yeah, like they will educate you on alcohol, They'll educate you on whatever you need to know. If it's medical.
We're not doing anything. If we're gonna do the bare minimum, let's not be upset at the bare minimum that's been. We can. To me, it'd be a much better response if we were upset at how bare minimum it is, and also how pussy it is to have to come out and be like, we're not giving them out crack pipes, guys. Like, don't act like we're
giving out crack pipes. Let's stop the bullshit. I'm gonna be honest. I believe that if I see one of them kids with a crack pipe in it, I'm gonna be like, so I thought we weren't doing crack pipes.
Think about it. If you're providing for them,
let me see one crack pipe in them kids.
HIV, mind you guys, is more transmissible right now. There's a strain that's even
understandable.
It's gonna be even more.
That's
like
why I ain't out here riding penises.
He has HIV.
I'm trying to listen to him, and every time you talk, his speaker or his mic gets lower.
Out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Tryst. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm just excited about work with this community, and I see it, and like I'm not somebody who's like necessarily because of my roommate and their pain, like they're in chronic pain all the time, and they're pain, they want to try all kinds of things to help self-medicate and everything like that. And I'm one of those people like, I'll take a little bit with you, shrooms.
That's why we should have free healthcare.
See, this is my regular dreams, so I already know like I don't need to be at a certain level where I can't quickly get myself out of my own mind because it will turn into 1408 on my ass real quick. So I'm not the biggest for like drugs person. Like I smoke some weed socially, but like I keep it at that usually. But there are other people like who use drugs. It's not my job to control that. It's my job to make sure that people are doing safe and that like literally in the first year of the pandemic, we had 30% more people who died off of opioids or just off of drugs in general than we do. And in the past 20 years, we've had 550,000 Americans who died off of drugs, especially with the opioid crisis factored in. And this is not just a question of like, I don't really want my money going to that because that gets used for everything. So we got with the lowest, the people with the least advantages and the most like scrutinized and the most like thrown and pushed to the side. Because otherwise we're just saying, look, you know, I really wish you would like it would almost be like me as a someone going to church being like, you know, I'll help you out, but you gotta go to church with me. You know, like we're having that type of energy.
No, we're not talking about anything about religion. We're talking about knowledge.
Yeah.
Let's give people knowledge. Like with any kind of drug, why can't we have an actual doctor like tells us, hey, this is what it could really actually do to you. Not, oh, there's side effects, but you can read it in this pamphlet. Nobody reads a pamphlet. I want to be able to talk to my doctor or anybody and be like, okay, so what exactly is this going to do to my body?
But you know what my thing is when I say they need to just go ahead, go to therapy and make, you know, healthcare free and stuff. All I'm saying is most people do drugs because they have issues that they're trying to drown out. If they went and tapped into whatever issue that is, and I'm not saying it's going to be the quickest fucking fix. I'm just saying that it's a better solution than just going and just being like, here's a kit, make sure you're safe. Like, no, let's get to the core reason why they're doing it in the first place.
Let's also not act like therapy doesn't also come with drugs to help you, because obviously it's not always just about talking you through.
But you're not getting Valium. You're not getting Valium. You're not getting Xanax. Well, you probably could get Xanax from a psychiatrist, but most times, if you are known to have an addiction, they're not going to give you Xanax. They're not going to give you anything that's going to become addictive.
I still need something for my pain, and so I'm still going to use. And if you cut me off because I use, then yes, I won't fuck with this system, and that's what we're living now. But like I was saying,
they still need to go to therapy to work their issues.
We don't require anyone else.
Because the person that I was talking about that was afraid to go to rehab, they're getting slightly better because they're going to therapy.
Like for example, when I talk about
truly getting help now. So it's helping them be like, okay, you know what?
But some people are not ready to talk about their issues with somebody right away. It takes
it takes a while.
You have to find the right person It doesn't matter if the therapist is the greatest therapist in the world. It may be because they're a therapist, or they're because they're an actual head figure, or what's another word?
Head doctor.
No, not head doctor. Authority. They're authority in that field. Some people don't feel comfortable talking to people like that. Maybe they
Understandable.
like somebody like Tryst. I would talk to him all day. Why? Because I know he has compassion. He actually cares about what he's doing. Versus a therapist who's kind of there to, and how
Well,
does that make
but you know, they're not all like that. Because
But a lot
like
of
mine,
and
You said
sometimes
what?
we
I said they're not all like that, but you still got to find the right one. Like, for example, a
Because
lot of
I haven't met a therapist like that. Well, no,
have.
I met a psychiatrist like that, and I stopped going to.
See,
You can just stop. Yeah, no, and I get it.
but
I
that's what I'm
get it.
saying.
But I'm
And then
just
some
saying.
people, after they get that one person, they try to open up to, and they're not feeling like they're actually being listened to or feel important. They shut down. They don't want to even deal with that no more.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like be able to talk to people like Tryst first, because you are lovely to talk to.
Yes, that is
And
me.
you could just talk to him, and he has so much knowledge, and he's not looking down at you or thinking, oh, paycheck here, how long can I talk to them for? Paycheck. So you could actually feel like he's a genuine person. Now, if he goes around and he actually finds a couple of therapists that'd be good to work with these people, and he goes, hey, here's these therapists, they're free, talk to them. They could help you with whatever you're going through, because it might just be something that you have not been able to unlock mentally, and because you don't know how to deal with it, you're using drugs, or you're using other means to get rid of the pain.
That's what I'm
like
saying.
like people who cut
At least
themselves.
we could try to get to the core reason why they're doing it in the first place.
But automatically therapists, no. But like, Tryst, are you like a caseworker or something?
I mean, there's always trying to look for social workers, but often we're trying to look pro bono social workers, because, you know, there's only ever so much money in the coffers to try, and like, especially if that's with one person, it's just because the system is the way it is.
But one person could make a difference, though, is a start.
Yeah,
but like I said, if you actually find somebody that you could talk to, or start conversation, like for me, one thing I do, because I know that a lot of veterans, they actually start getting into drugs and stuff like that. So or they get depressed, they want to commit suicide. So every time I go to a store, if they have a hat or some kind of symbol on them that says, yo, I'm a veteran, or hey, I'm in the military, because even military people, they just want to end their life after a while because of all the stress. I tell them, hey, thank you for your service. And they're like, what? I had a guy cry, say, God must have made you come here, because you just made my day, because you don't know what I was going through, and today was about to be my last day.
But
and I met him at Costco.
Yeah, but that just goes back to how last week we were talking about how we should just be kind to each other, though. You know,
also,
I'm not.
The lives we want them to live for us to want to help them, because like when we talk about, oh, there should be free healthcare, a lot of people are against that. Will say things like, oh, well, look at fat people, they live their lives however, why should my money go to that when they live a certain lifestyle? Look at smokers, they live a certain lifestyle, they choose
but they would be benefiting from it too.
But that's the thing, we would all be benefiting from it, even with like drug legalization.
No, but that is genetics. It's not a drug choice.
How will I benefit from a drug kit and a crack pipe?
If you have to do less crime to get the drugs you need, guess what? Crime goes down.
That doesn't mean that it's not still going to be people that's going to be wilding off of drugs. That's my other issue, is that people take drugs, certain drugs that make them do wild shit. Like, cause like we had people that were busting people upside their head with bricks here in DC and stones. A little baby had to get stitches in her head because somebody who was high decided that they was going to just walk up to this person with a baby in the stroller and just bop, bop, bop.
Yeah, but they probably also had other issues going on and were living on the street and were feeling isolated from people, and all of that does something to you. So like, yes, like we're worried about crime, but
And he was on drugs. And he ain't steal.
if you provide housing for people, free housing, housing for all, if you provide like actual finances for people, like a UBI, like universal basic income, if you actually provide like physical and mental care for them that isn't conditional on whether or not they're using, then you actually improve people's lives to the point where they are not in desperate situations and they're not violent. But people are often living on the streets, feeling ignored, panhandling, having to sell, do sex work for the sake of like getting high. Because if you're in pain and if you're isolated and alone, why wouldn't you rather be high? If you have people constantly stealing your shit, people who you also call friends, because at the end of the day, this is your community, you're gonna get high and you're also gonna be violent. You're also going to be on edge. And like we just think in the simple terms of like, oh, drugs, people on drugs in our area, but we don't think about like the lives they're literally living that has them so close to feeling like I'm not even really being treated like a human.
Which is why I was saying, at least we can put this money towards other things that are more important.
Hey, Tryst.
And those are things that are important, like housing, like you said, that is important. Universal health care, universal basic income, that is important.
More than 30 million. So if we're complaining about 30 million, we're not going to get into the billions and trillions we need to allocate.
But we need to cut a whole bunch of other things besides this kit. I'm not saying cut the whole thing, but like, come on, 30 million.
30 million shit. There are Marvel movies that cost like 3 times that shit.
I don't care about a damn Marvel movie.
Marvel movies, most of that money goes to
about real fucking life right now. We're talking about real life. Those are movies.
In your little kit,
as movies and costumes. Those are people that actually do their shit. I'm not saying that everybody that's in that set is so. I'm saying, but they're working and they're not out here committing crimes
that we know of.
Going to work like it's like that. They're not doing that. They're not busting people upside the head with bricks.
Hoffman died because his heroin was tainted. These niggas get all the time. It's just they have the that.
You said who? No, who?
Philip Seymour Hoffman. Remember he died of using heroin.
But was he working on a movie at that time?
Probably, yeah. And also remember,
remember him working on a movie when he died?
I don't think he was he?
He was not.
Look it up.
Philip Seymour Hoffman?
He wasn't. Because I remember when that shit happened. There was no movie coming out from Philip Seymour Hoffman.
There's a movie coming out. He's an actor. And he was a very good actor. No one even knew he was a
didn't have no movies coming out because that would have been a big thing. He was working on so-and-so movie, just like when Heath Ledger died.
Of unnecessary shit. I think at the end of the day.
It's unnecessary. You came up with it.
Chris.
We got wrap this
up. Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Thank you. Whenever you get that kit, can you take pictures and let us know what, a video of what's in it? Also, just to let you know, down here, Virginia Beach, we do have a building. It's like maybe not even a mile away from my house. That's actually made for homeless people, families to be able to live in there for a while, so they can get up off their feet and then they move on. But the program they do is that not only do you get like a place to live, but they also do a little bit of mental health classes, try to figure out like, because some parents, they do have mental issues like bipolar, where they just snap and that house, they don't want to be in there no more. They'd rather be homeless. Or some people who are where they're so, what's the word? Where they think everybody is coming to get them.
Schizophrenia.
Yes. Some of them are homeless, but this place, they actually help you learn a skill so you can get a job, to help start, saving up some money. They try to help you find a home, try to give you different skills that even after you move out, they still keep up to date with you, make sure you're doing okay. they prefer you to be not doing drugs, but they do put you in a class to try to, if you do want to stop doing like some more of the hardcore drugs, or get off the painkillers and stuff like that. They do have classes for you to do that, but it's not mandatory. It's more of, hey, some people just want to be off drugs. Here's a way. We got a way for you. So I think we should, instead of making kits, we should come up with better ways to educate and deal with what's going on in our communities. Have put some of that money towards more social workers to be one-on-one with these people, and put it towards programs that give people homes with the ability to do these classes to learn skills, because some people may do drugs because they don't have anything else they know what to do with their lives. And if they have a skill, maybe I'm not saying, oh, you're going to be saved and you're going to be miracle and you're never going to do drugs again because you got some kind of working experience or working skills, but maybe it will bring up their confidence, or, kind of help them start getting out of that hole. So, like a lifeline.
I respect the thought process on it. My only thing is like, all the education in the world isn't going to help you if you're overdosing because you didn't get a good clean kit. If you didn't get a good Narcan kit, if you didn't get something to like actually help improve very slightly your existence on the street. Like,
my thing is, how's everybody's going to get this kit?
From CVS.
Yeah, but not everyone's going to be welcomed into CVS. Not everyone's
well, then you can sue for discrimination and get some money from that.
No, I think it should be in a hospital.
Like, and you
look,
that way you have a professional, the hospitals and social workers. That way you have somebody that could check up on you every once in a while, because they know that you're doing this kind of stuff.
Okay.
I would one more thing. I just would like to say, like, let's just remember, as much as we're complaining about $30 million, all the things we're suggesting cost billions and trillions more possibly. So like, universal healthcare actually does save money in the end, because you have less people overdosing, you have less people who regularly need to go to the hospital for regular different things that happen because they have no healthcare. But it's going to cost more than whatever $30 million thing is happening now. So let's keep in mind.
I'd rather pay that much money if it's going to help every single person in America versus just a select group.
That's the thing. Like the same thing where we talk about reparations, and they're like, should Black people get money?
No, we're running over.
Everybody needs something. And why should, like, programs for domestically abused women, why should they get something special and all other people face abuse?
Because they didn't choose it.
About 30 million.
Listen, all right, y'all. Excuse me. Hold on. Let's take a break, you guys. Let's take a break.